Hello everybody, welcome to yet another episode of Glove and Table Talks, where I am a Glover and with me are other fellow Glovers, but I also have a very, very special guest. This is somebody we've been trying to get on here for a very long time, and finally the stars have aligned in an ironic way that we finally get Starlight here on the show. Starlight, how is it going?
Pretty good. Happy to be here. How are you guys?
Big chillin'.
I'm dealing with the big sad.
I think we're all dealing with the big sad.
Me, I can't relate. I'm sorry.
You will in 5 years.
You
Right?
will, yeah.
I will in 5 years. It's gonna take 5 years for this to unpack for me, bro. That's scary. Let me put that on my calendar.
Yeah, so at the time of this recording, it's been like, what, a week now, I think?
A couple
Almost
of
a week.
days. Couple days. 4 days.
Let me check my
Since
notes.
Monday.
I wrote
Monday?
I wrote it down. I know I wrote down the date. Yeah, it was Monday.
that-
Monday the 9th, we as a community got one of the biggest shakeups in community news, and that is Emazing Lights shutting its doors after 12 very long years. I think some of us might even consider it might be even shorter than that, but no, Emazing Lights has officially closed their doors, and it was it was pretty rough for all of us. So I know for a lot of our guests that we have on the show, Emazing Lights was a very integral part of their career within the community and things of that nature. And so, ironically enough, we're going to have to talk about it. So, anyone has anything to say about it?
Is that the biggest news in I feel like it's like the biggest news in gloving. It's gotta be.
Well, from my perspective, right? Like, it. So I've only been doing this for like 3 years, right? And so, Emazing was already kind of playing a very background role as it was when I started, but being the one of the like 3 companies, right? Because you have Emazing, Throw Lights, and LED gloves, right? Those 3 are the ones that really sell chips on like the market, right? Like they have websites, they have official ways to order stuff and stuff. But Emazing was the biggest. I went and watched the Shark Tank video, and the fact that this company in particular shut down is big for me. But I don't necessarily have that emotional connection with it, right? Like, I was seeing people talk about watching the Emazing features like all the time, or like whenever a new one would come out, there was so much hype around it and stuff. I wasn't there to experience that hype, right? Like I was just so like, I don't know. I do think it is like the biggest news. Like I use the term milestone as a very neutral word. It's like one of the biggest events to happen thus far. But I'm mostly curious to see where we go from the future from here. But we won't talk about the future yet. Not yet.
We're getting there.
We'll get there.
No, but Starlight, as somebody who was a Emazing Light sponsor, I think you're the second longest active one under Jess, or
Might be. I think Jest was like a year before me, I think. So I think I might be the second longest running.
Because
Yeah.
when did Nick Bash get put on? And
God.
then
Well, he
was
got-
like a year before
he
me or
retired
something.
2 years ago.
Yeah, he retired. So I think he might have been before Jest. I don't remember the timing in particular because there was a lot of like a big cluster of the groups like coming together over it.
Please put the accurate information in the comment section below, people, please.
Yeah, fact check us on this information, but yeah, I think that's the timeline for it. But around 2015 was when there were like big waves and clusters of people kind of getting sponsored all at once. So there can be like little time points here and there that are kind of all over the board.
Sari, let me ask you a question. Do you remember who was part of the EL sponsorship when you joined? Who was already a part of it?
Quite a lot. I mean, it was.
We had probably me, Josh, Nick Bash.
Trump too, right?
Crafty.
Crafty,
Trump.
Materia, Youngblood.
Wait, Evan was already?
Merc.
Really?
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
I think so. I think he was before me. I
Oh.
think. Vex, I want to say.
Jacob, okay.
Jacob.
Was Blast off?
Yes,
Blasty was already part of it?
Blasty was already part of
Okay.
it. Yeah, Blasty was already part of it. Man, this is hard because it was such a big group. Swirls.
Oh wow, yeah.
Was it Tetris before me too?
She was Mez sponsored before you too, or were you? Because okay, this is one.
This was after me. I
After
think.
okay, because
think.
Yeah.
this is I forgot about. I literally just remember this fact right now, but like the way that the EL sponsorship added people would be in like groups of 3, if you guys remember. Do you remember who joined with you when you started? It's so cloudy. I just can't remember.
I actually want to say that I might have been
By yourself.
by myself.
Oh.
I think I might have been by myself.
If I remember
because-
correctly, you were actually by yourself because you were the, I don't want to say poster child, but you were the reason they started a program, which if I remember correctly was Glove for Glove.
No, Glove for Glove had already existed before I came along. They just
What was the program that they introduced you with? There was a program that they introduced you with because of your story.
Well, the Glove for Glove program had already existed before I had like kind of happened upon it. They were already trying to do the Glove for like the physical therapy and that kind of thing. But I think that was the first time they had done like an actual feature or something like that.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes a little bit more
yeah.
sense now. I see where you're going. Yeah. Man, it's kind of crazy to sit here and actually go down memory lane about Emazing Lights. Like, I understand people's gripes. I mean, I have had people like
Sure.
getting into an argument with me because of their bad customer experiences, and I get that. But the thing that I feel like a lot of people, especially newer people, who just don't understand what Emazing did. Emazing gave us a home. They gave us a place when we were being ostracized from the rave community because of the gloving ban. I mean, we're talking about one of the quintessential points in our history that a company saw something happening and said, I need to save the community and give them a place to stay and to grow. And that's what they did. I understand people's points of view about sports and how they don't like the idea of gloving being a sport, but it was something that we needed, regardless of how you feel about it. It was something for us to take refuge in. And I feel like people are really just kind of like discounting it now. And it actually really upsets me because, yes, it was really sad to see how Emazing Lights turned out, but they gave us something. They gave us. They gave us a place for us to connect.
Well, and I think the most important thing that happened with them is that they managed to get their YouTube page as big as it was, which is just kind of unheard of in gloving, like how they managed to get it from, you know, where it was to where it is today. That there are features on the EL channel that have like millions of views and
Legendary.
and so yes, all of the community stuff, but really what I see the highest value is the production value that they put into their YouTube features. They gave everybody a chance to see like, hey, look, making gloving videos is also an art form. And they're not the first ones to do it. You know, Orbit was doing plenty of those. Like there are tons of other feature style light shows that are out there from other companies. But in my opinion, it was really EL's that was the most popular, the most consistent. It went for the longest. And that was one of those like, can lightning strike twice? Can we somehow do that again without the backing of EL as a brand? I know without those features, I wouldn't have started gloving if it weren't for those.
See, that's the thing that gets on my nerves when people really like start to bash on EL. It's like, you need to understand what they did. Regardless, like, yes, they made a couple decisions down the road that inevitably ended their demise. I will concede to that. But they were able to show people what it is that we're trying to do. I mean, like, it bothers me when people don't understand how important those features were, because the next day people will be sitting there talking about, I remember going over to a friend's house and we would go and watch it and literally play it on repeat and talk about the things that we would see people do and try to work. Like, it was, there's no other way I can describe it, but it felt like I was playing Magic the Gathering again. That wasn't Magic the Gathering. Like, it was the social aspect. It was this communion that I was having with other people who had the same idea as I did about this art form. And it's just, it is heartbreaking to see it go.
Right, and not only that, but I think the way that Emazing did everything was that it painted this lifestyle, right? That was like way bigger than anyone would imagine. Like, okay, you see these glovers go out to all these festivals, like, and the way that they portray them, it's like they were like celebrities, right? And I think being, for me personally, straight out of college in my early 20s, it's like, wow, like it looks like, and it seems like they're living their life. These guys are getting so much clout, and you see people, everybody wanted to be Gummy, everybody wanted to be Stunner, right? And it was like, wow, they're living like a rock star life. At least that's what it looked like from the outside, and that for me is, for me personally, that's what I was inspired, like, as a goal, right? I'm pretty sure, like, Sari, when you started watching Emazing, who were the first people you would watch on Emazing?
Blitzen, Teddy, and Mumbles were my first that I really, like, hardcore tunneled into it and kind of looked at it and was like, I could do this. I could actually do this. Like, this seems tangible. Like, I want to do that. That looks cool as hell. Like, yeah, I want to be that. I want to be that to other people for what they're being for me right now. That was one of my biggest inspirations, that I felt like a sensation of, like, owing them, like owing the gloving community, that I had been filled with so much inspiration and so much desire. And, like, as lame as it might sound, like, my desire for getting a feature, being an EL sponsor, being within those artists genuinely motivated me to put my life back together. And some people might be like, oh, gloving, like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever saves your life is what saves your life. And for me, it happened to be gloving, and it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the features. I didn't realize what the rest of everything else was tacked onto it until I started getting involved in the gloving community and really, like, doing it. Because I started gloving in 2013, end of 2013, and come, like, February, May of 2014, I was starting to meet other glovers, starting to get integrated into the scene. And that's when I realized what an EL sponsor actually was. And that's when I was like, that's the ticket. That's what I want to do with this.
And so, like, you know, I spend a lot of time kind of just breaking down a lot of different, just a lot of different things that feel very important. And it's like, you can kind of see that, like, Colorado, I would say, is one of the hubs for glovers, right? There's, the community there is pretty large, right? And
Yeah.
I think that easily could have been centered around the fact that you were a sponsor, right? Like, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, it absolutely goes hand in hand. I mean, my journey with EL kind of started on a bit of a fluke. That Ice Cream Teddy was doing customer loyalty calls to people who had bought chips, and he ended up just calling my cell phone, and I was like, I have Ice Cream Teddy on the phone. Oh my God, I have Ice Cream Teddy on the phone. And he was so gracious enough to sit with me for like 20 minutes, because I was like, hey, I want to do this. What do we do? And he was like, okay, kid, you want to go do this? Go build your local community. Go make a team. Go make a local community. Go start putting out content. The way that you impress this company as of right then in that moment was turn Colorado into something that the gloving world cared about. And I will never take 100% credit for everything. I have had a team of people throughout the years that, you know, have had their own ambitions. Like there were more people than just me that were doing it, that were working with other companies and whatnot. But I will take credit for a ton of the driving force of wanting to rebuild it and getting it to where it was. And I say rebuild because there was a scene before me. I am not the progenitor. Was just kind of a harbinger of bringing that community back together. And because I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, I, you know, had only been gloving for like a year or two when I was like, okay, I'm gonna really do this. So it felt like a happy accident, but it wasn't. So building up Colorado was definitely an incentive to get my sponsorship. But then what started to happen is as I started to get integrated into these things, I started to fall in love with it. Like at the time, like I didn't care if I was sponsored or not. I wanted to run the community because I had created this incredible scene. At one point, we had been called the Gloving Mecca, above and beyond California at one point.
Yes, you were literally called Gloving's second Mecca because...
Yeah.
And see, I feel like I'm the oldest in terms of gloving experience because I started in February 2010. So
okay,
at the beginning of the 2010...
Grandpa.
Yes, the old head era, as we like to refer to it. I watched and saw what happened. It went from Southern California to Denver, Colorado, to Hawaii, and then all of a sudden you kind of had equal shares of Seattle, Dallas, Arizona, and Florida, all kind of like rising. But they never really got big enough like how Colorado or Hawaii did in terms of the public sphere consciousness. Because I remember people just talking constantly about Colorado glovers, and this is where I think people start to learn the tech versus flow argument, because Colorado came in and brought an entire paradigm of technical precision that we didn't see before, as opposed to the SoCal flow.
Well, and a real quick thing that I want to do, I want to set the record straight. Aloha Nation was Colorado's inspiration, period. We looked at Aloha Nation. You guys were a little bit further along than we were when we wanted to start like doing things, but when we really wanted to like kind of professionalize our scene a little bit, like kind of make it known that like we want to do things, we're going to host competitions, we're going to do these kinds of things, we looked at Aloha Nation for inspiration. I mean, that's exactly where hashtag Mile High movement came from, was we looked at hashtag Aloha Nation and we were like, we need something like that. And in a sense, we did kind of copy you guys in a little bit. So yes, credit to what Colorado became, but just know that we were taking notes from Hawaii. Hawaii really set the precedent for a lot of how the local scenes outside of California should be ran. And I bit so many of their techniques and so many things, and it worked beautifully. So, and what's interesting is, legally speaking, Colorado and Hawaii are considered sister states. They actually, really? Yes, your college credits are transferable, no question, between states. Like, they're considered sister states. So we really leaned into that when it came into making production and things with Colorado. So just so you know, like, yes, we did a lot of stuff. Yes, there was, you know, all of this mecca and whatnot, but really we wanted to be Hawaii. It eventually became ourselves because Hawaii is Hawaii, but we wanted to do what you guys were doing.
Interesting.
Thank you for that, sorry. But sorry about it. But yeah, I mean, like I have to give credit as well, right? So like, I feel like we're on the exact same boat. Sari, me and you, we have literally the exact same role in our community. But again, it wasn't literally just only me that was able to hold stuff for the community, right? Fortunately, it was amazing for our scene because we're all in such a close vicinity within each other that a lot of different people would host different things and everybody in the state could make it, right? So like that, so that leaves me with a question, Sari. How many different event organizers or like people who would run, like, say, competitions or kickbacks or events for specifically gloving were there in your community? Would you say that you were kind of like the one who did most of it, or were there other leaders within the community as well? Whether they give their house for people to come and sesh, whether you guys, hey guys, let's go meet here, or let's have this at this event or whatnot.
There were other leaders. We kind of made a decision that there needed to be a team of leaders. There needed to be. And so what ended up happening was I had a team of people who were more like they were certainly leaders. And I would say that the leadership team usually sat at around 10 people. And some of them were people with resources, some of them were people with like DJ equipment and technology, some of them were hookups with other companies. We had somebody that was really interworking with LED gloves. His name's Cody Chi, and he was doing a ton of stuff alongside. And there was actually a bit of a friendly rivalry that happened with me and Cody. It was we wanted to like outdo each other's events, but what had ended up happening was it created this like hunger for everyone to do things. So I think what my primary role was cat wrangling. That's usually what I was doing. I was somewhat of an idea guy. There were other idea guys as well, but really what I was doing was like wrangling a bunch of stuff together and kind of like doing the organizational effect. And then I often got put at the front for all of the public speaking. Just from, I think, trial and error, we figured out that people just listen to me a little bit better. So I was usually more of the voice, the kind of the talking head and whatnot. But and the lead, it's kind of gone up and down in numbers. At one point there was like 15, 20 people that were taking care of it. Then it kind of dipped back down. And I wanted to make it a point that like, I am not the king. I'm more of the messenger, and not trying to discredit myself, but there were lots of people that came in. I mean, like when Morgan Stengel moved to Colorado for Tangles, like she brought a ton of that community reach with her and was really involved in it. My teammate Marcus Monk was a huge driving force in a lot of the music and stuff. So while I will accept my head leadership role as what it was was not all me, not by a long shot, no.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the Colorado thing, one of the biggest hallmarks, in my opinion, is that you guys actually, I don't want to say codified, but you guys created a standard of how a competition mindset should be. I mean, one of the things I always remember what people always talk about is the Colorado comps. Like that was the thing. Colorado Bosses was like the talk about thing, because there was so much innovation and so much just, you guys threw so much at the wall to see what stuck, and it was a lot that stuck. I mean, and so with the other thing that I also find so interesting is that you guys watched a lot of Hawaii, but nothing that is very unique and distinct to platforming stuck with you guys. You guys literally took another aspect about their technical approach to it, and literally went and created your own thing with it in a way. And it really actually set what I would consider the first gloving meta that Jess likes to refer to a lot. I feel like Colorado was the one that said, we will create a meta, and you guys did.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, that, like we didn't necessarily trailblaze. We just kind of took all of the information around us, and we wanted to set our own meta. We wanted to set what would work. And once we realized what would work, we were just like, no, we're totally confident in it. And I am a massive hater of gatekeeping. So I would always, like, if people are like, how did you do this? I would be like, this is how. It's not as hard as it looks once you get the hang of it. Like, it's hard work, but it's not difficult to do. And with our competitions, just one of the things is that we would observe what would happen in different competitions, and we would kind of be like flies on the wall and just listen, pay attention to what people didn't like. And instead of going out, talking shit about it, saying, I can do this better, we just simply did. We were like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, they really liked that, I'm gonna do that. And then just stuck to what worked and just kept doing it. And God, I had a hand in the vast majority of the competitions that were held out here. I mean, how many bosses did I host? I want to say like
Dozens.
six or something like that. Yeah, like, and for a decent amount of those, I was emceeing and hosting at the same time. But I was blessed to have a team of like consistent like judges and organizers and whatnot, of people who were really like-minded individuals that really wanted things to be consistent. Like when we started to get the reputation of being the meta and whatnot, we went, oh, okay, we need to be like extra serious about this. We really needed to like drive this home, because if we're going to be setting a standard, we better make sure that our house is clean.
Yeah.
So a thing that I want to reel back a little bit. So we have Colorado, right, as a gloving hub. As Emazing sponsors, you guys kind of had you guys had that networking, and you kind of understood where all the other sponsors were from, right? Like, was there one in Texas? Is Gloveson, right?
Yes, Gloveson.
When did he get put on? Around the same time or after?
Later, I want to say like 2016 or 2017. He got put on a little bit later, I think. Yeah.
Okay, because like what I've seen, right, is the moment that EL decided to put a sponsor in whatever region, in whatever state, it immediately would put that place on the map, right? Like that's what happened with Hawaii. And like, because my perspective is so weird, because I'm in the same kind of position that you were in, Sari, when you got put on as a sponsor. But like, I'm obviously, I don't have that kind of position yet, but like,
you do. You're
DMV...
carving it very quickly. It does remind me a lot of my own journey, is that you have hit the ground running. Like you're going. So
I am a nonsense kind of person, but in terms of progress and growth, I am a no nonsense kind of person. And like the DMV community started something like that because we had Outlaws sponsor.
Yep.
And then he moved, and then everything else started kind of crumbling from there because people had lives and moved on and this and that. So I'm in a position now where I have a community that is kind of spread out, a lot smaller, and there's no one at the front of it, right? There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes because I'm a part of it. But like, I'm just kind of watching and listening to see where we go from here. Because we have Outlaw as center, but then he moved and other stuff, right?
Well, the reason that you saw individual communities pop up like the second somebody got sponsored is that it was in our sponsorship requirements. Like, a big thing that people don't keep in mind is that EL had the absolute most demanding sponsorship requirements by a lot. Like, a lot.
It was a job.
It was a job. And that's a thing that people don't seem to understand still with the EL sponsorship is, yes, we did get treated like rock stars, and like, I'm not discounting any of that, but keep in mind the amount of work that was expected of us, and a ton of it was optics intentionally. So when you would get an EL sponsor in a state, it's not that it was required for us to be part of the local community, but if we did that, it made them very happy. Like, it wasn't like super strict of like, you have to go to these amount of shows. It was decently ambiguous, but the workload was massive. So it kind of was like a chicken or the egg kind of thing. Like, it kind of happened by proxy. So EL had such high demands on us that when it was easiest for us to take those demands out on our local community than it was the bigger national one at hand. We needed to build up what we had locally, kind of get that going, and then that would kind of get more integrated into the national circuit. So that's kind of why you see a bit of that void happening now, is at least as far as I know, there aren't those company expectations that are being held to those standards. And to be fair, EL was like, follow our company standards and we'll fly you to IGC. There was that incentive that kind of had it with there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like with getting put on as a sponsorship, right? Like there's a lot of responsibilities that came with it, like you said. Like Ken was saying, it's a job, but like that job gets really easy when you have an entire community behind you. If you not only have Sari, you were saying like a team of 10 people behind you, but you could also have an entire community of like 70, 80 people, I don't know, whatever the number may be, but like that makes all of your responsibilities way easier, right? It makes exposure way easier.
Yes and no, and I think Kevin's gonna hit on that.
Maybe. I just kind of wanted to explain, like, so for the people who was selected in the sponsorship program, at least like in hindsight, those people who were selected have already been doing things for the community already. So it wasn't like it was a massive difference once you got into the sponsorship. The sponsorship program was already looking for people who are already making big waves within their local community. That's why for me it was very harmonic, and like I didn't need to do anything different, to be honest, besides post a little bit more. It was already something that I had already been naturally doing, which is why I believe may have been why I have been really successful within the sponsorship program, right? But there's also a lot of like love and responsibility, and when I actually think about it, when I actually think about the amount that we have done, Sari, we're like almost marketers for the whole, like,
not almost.
Company. Well,
we are marketers.
Like this is like over like what? 50 grand a year jobs, you know what I mean? Like the amount of things I were doing. When I really think about it, what we were able to do, that's a full-time job.
It was baptism by fire for sure.
Yes. But what you'll find is that like for those who were successful in the community, they were already, I mean, with the sponsorship, they were already kind of doing it, right?
Yeah. I think mine is a little bit of a unique circumstance because I started gloving to set out to be an Emazing sponsor. And that's a pretty unique circumstance. Yes, I started gloving because I wanted to be someone like an EL sponsor. And of course I love gloving but really the real incentive to like get it going is I wanted that job. So for me, like, I did all of that intentionally and then fell in love with everything else in the process. But what you're getting at is that EL wanted people who were already doing the job, and then they could just come along and insert resources and insert, other kinds of things. So whenever people would ask me, like,
here you go.
Yeah, so whenever people would ask me, they would be like, how do I become sponsored like EL? I would say, you need to act like an EL sponsor. That's what needs to happen. Like EL, I was very fortunate that I had somebody, that I had Teddy, and I think it was, Teddy and I have talked about this, that he just kind of believed in me individually, but that was rare. That didn't really happen for a lot of other people, and why mine is kind of like almost like a sweetheart sort of story. Like it was almost like a love story. Yeah, the stars really did align. Like I just got really lucky that I happened to, get on the horn, and there are a ton of people that would want to be EL sponsors, but just, I don't know, didn't get the message of what they were looking for. And on the note of like, having the community behind me and whatnot, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, yes, I have the support of all of these people who trust me, that I've earned their trust so graciously over the years, but at the same time, a lot of everything could reflect on me towards them, and that was like a different level of eyes. Like
it's a new set of responsibilities that came.
New set of responsibilities, and so like over time, like I know a lot of people have kind of like, oh, why are you so like polished and proper and whatnot? I'm like, because I have the image of like a whole state behind me that I really, really care about. So it's it's like a home base, and it's a really comforting thing, but it's also a little terrifying.
Right. I kind of
Yeah,
want
it's
also
not
to
for sure.
add. I kind of wanted to also add to that because it's, to me personally, it was freaking crazy when you have the backing of a whole community and you're basically a voice for them already, but that moment that you get sponsored by Emazing, it's like, holy crap, bro, like you have all this power now, and like you can, it feels like you have the credibility to do and go more things. So like on top of like your local community, like it's either if you got the sponsorship, you either kind of like, oh yeah, like that's my final go, now I'm just gonna go and relax, right? Or it would propel you to do even more things. And I think for Sari, right, and for myself, we took that as a starting point. Like the sponsorship, once you got the sponsorship program, that's a new beginning. Like that's
Now
not
it's
the
the
end goal.
beginning. Yep,
The game
now it's the
actually
beginning.
started.
That's when the game started.
It is
right?
your
Yeah.
inciting incident to your hero's journey.
You just finished the tutorial, bro.
Right? Exactly.
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 Yeah.
Right.
Like Spider-Man getting put on the Avengers, being like, what? Like, that's kind of what it felt like. That it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, you could feel the gears shift like immediately. And I have really bad imposter syndrome still with a lot of things. Like, I'm still just like, I'm just a Glover, I'm not that. So like having that like fight bloody murder with my imposter syndrome constantly was a really unique experience. You know, that at a certain point I mathematically could no longer believe my imposter syndrome. Like, I was like, dude, you're straight up wrong. Like, these
Yes, you're wrong,
people
Sari.
actually have faith in me, and I'm actually doing things that grant them that faith. It's not just because that I'm Starlight, it's because I'm actually doing things. And there came a time where I let myself be confident in it. And once that started happening and things really started to click into pieces, that's when you started to see like the Colorado Gloving Invitational and things like that, and how it turned into such an enormous mecca. And because, in my opinion, because I had Emazing's claws sunk so deep into the Colorado community, it bred a healthy form of competition. Like, LED Gloves came in and was like, I want to be part of this mecca too. And I was like, yeah, like, I got paid to run both CGIs that were hosted by LED Gloves while I was sponsored by Emazing. And Emazing was like, yeah, do it. Like, this is your hometown. Go right on ahead. So I share the sentiment with you, Kevin, that it was wild. Like, things were exciting, and then the sponsorship hit, and it felt like, you know, liftoff, basically. And
It got real. No, this is really good because, you know, like I was saying earlier, EL leaving, you know, is sad for a majority of people, you know, especially if you've been in for 5+ years, I would say. But this is where I feel like it gets real for everybody, right? This is because, like, you know, I'm already starting to try and plan out my community's future, because luckily I have people that are 100% willing to do what they can. So it just sounds like I have to get to work a lot sooner than I want to.
what I think the biggest challenge is for everybody moving forward is this giant void of proper incentive. And listen, doing art for art's sake is the point of art. I never want anyone to think that I think everyone should be trying to monetize or no. Like, without the people who just glove for fun, I never would have had a job. Like, without the people that are just doing it because they want to, they are the most important people in the scene. However, there's something to be said about the level of incentive that Emazing gave Glovers. Like, if you get noticed enough, we'll get you a feature, and one of your light shows could have 50,000 views. Like, that is an incentive. And with EL, like, dead, and frankly, the lack of funding, like, the money topic in gloving is such a hairy one, but it's an important one. You know, if without this multi-million-dollar company being willing to put money into the community, that the incentives kind of go out the window, you know? It's like, what, and it's, again, I don't want to make it seem like the monetary incentives are all that gloving has, but without those monetary incentives, you know, you just have people meeting up and throwing lights, again, which is great. But if we want it to push forward, if we want to get back to anything like what it was in the early days, the incentives have to come from somewhere. And I really genuinely don't know what that looks like right now.
Yeah, so I actually have a couple of things I want to point out. So, and then this will be in my own, like, Emazing Lights death video. We lost our biggest representative of our community. I don't care how people feel about this company. They were the biggest representative. We're talking about a company who had 104,000 subscribers to their YouTube channel. The next highest one is 11K. That is 10 times the visibility that is just gone now. Okay?
No.
And it's, to me, that's what's terrifying, is that we are losing our visibility. We are becoming invisible to the greater sphere of society. And we have to concede to the fact that as much as you can be ideologically opposed to the stick, you have to understand that the stick and the cheese exist, and you have to work with both. So we have to understand and concede to the fact that when we want to be visible to the greater world, we have to concede to the fact about the economy. And that's one of the things that I've been talking about, is the gloving economy and gloving ecosystem. And that was something that Emazing Lights provided. Right? Now, granted, yes, we can all talk about their business practices and owning 80% of the market share, which, again, a company that owned 80% of the market share just disappears. What kind of vacuum are we going to see? This is the thing that scares me right now, is to see this vacuum effect happen. And it's the level of uncertainty that I don't think people are really grasping here. Like, this is very treacherous waters that our community is in right now. And we have to basically put aside our egos, put aside our differences, and we have to reunite like we did when the gloving ban happened. And we just gotta work together. Otherwise, this all goes. And that's not going to happen on my watch. I'm sorry. I'm not going to let it happen.
I think what people tend to forget is that as glove, like the big problem, right, is that gloving is so trendy, and then it's so weird, and then it's like it looks stupid to the general population that Glovers often forget like that we're all on the same team. Like whether or not whatever company you're repping, or screw Emazing Lights, let me rep this other company, whatever, like we're still on the same boat, man. Like gloving is dying. Like I've called gloving dying a long time ago, right? And it's so crazy that people often like to focus on things like that rather than help the community, right? This very community that you're involved with and that you're part with, right? None of that negative is ever gonna help us in achieving the goal to bring gloving in a more positive light, right? And then so when I see stuff like that, it's like it's such a waste of time to think of stuff like that, right?
Well, in a sense, this is kind of the first like blessing we can look at with EL shutting down, is that not only is it the end of Emazing's era, but both in my opinion and in my desires, this is the end for now of companies being the end-all be-all of what gloving can push forward. And it's pushed the ball back into the community's court and said, you're on your own, you gotta do this. So yes, we've lost a lot, and I feel like what we lost is significantly greater than what we've gained, but we have gained something, which is stop thinking that the company loyalties and company attachments, and I'm just as guilty of this as everybody else, but now I see it now, you know, like
hindsight's 2020.
Yep.
Just so like, but okay. So here's the thing. I feel like this is actually the good point to start shifting gears and talking about what we can do. Now, I don't want this to feel like a giant doom and gloom, because it's not that. we have things going for our community. We're just not pushing it hard enough as if like we did when we had Emazing Lights. I mean, we have WWG. We're all sitting here like there's a growing community here. We have Futuristic Lights who's still in the fight. Zohar's back and he is not giving up, which is a huge boon in my eyes because somebody who's owned a company that still wants to fight for our community is a big boon. Regardless of how people feel about Futuristic Lights, at least there's that. We still have outlets to provide the equipment for people to get in. The barrier to entry, I guess, depending on how people are looking at it, it might be lower now because bulb sets tend to be cheaper. It scares me when people are like, oh, the only barrier to entry now is stone orbits. It's like, no, calm down. So we have a lot of good things going on that we are insular with our community that we need to branch out and we need to, I don't want to say recruit, but we need to start attracting the outside audience in. We need to bring people in. We've worked together, but now it's to bring more people in.
Create new Glovers was a huge mission statement for the EL sponsors. Like, that was huge, like getting it out. And I think I can segue Kevin into talking about this with branching out and whatnot. We need to eat our pride and we need to get on TikTok.
1,000,000%. I think what needs to happen with our community right now is that there needs to be a shift in perspective and mindset, right? And you guys seen me say this, ironically, in GL all the time, but it's we have to move away from GL. Well, not post in GL, but we need to put our time in other platforms, right? It's interesting because with the times, right, the playing field has changed, right? With how people are consuming media, which is how 99% of people know about gloving through videos, right? We need to start posting in short format. We need to hit up all like FB Reels, IG Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and even just posting on YouTube or maybe even Twitch. Like I know a couple Glovers who have been streaming on Twitch before, but to me, being anywhere and everywhere is a good thing, and posting in GL all the time is kind of a trap because you're not necessarily gaining new eyes, right? You're kind of just posting to people who are already been part of the community for years, and it gets kind of old. So with that becomes, how do we grow and how do we make this new and exciting? There's a whole demographic of the next best Glover is probably on TikTok. Like, let's be real. He's a 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, and he's just waiting to see glove lights on someone's fingers and inspire them. I have talked to so many people on TikTok, messages being like, yo, this is so cool. Where can I get the gloves? And now I can't say amazing, right? I tell them Futuristic Lights now. Which, by the way, kind of off the topic, I've heard good things coming from Zohar, so I can't say much, but
Good to hear.
There's good things.
I'm so happy he came back.
Yeah.
Because when I went to review the Ions, I actually had like a 2-hour conversation on the phone with him, and so to see him come back made me very happy. So here's one of the things I will certainly say. Some of the ideas that I have is what I've heard from the communities over the years, especially as me being a content creator. One of the things that is an overlapping conversation point I'm hearing is people want to see the comps be played out on Twitch. They want that live stream comment interaction that happened like it happened with the Whip Olympics, the IB comp. There was live interaction that was happening, and that's what was drawing a lot more people's attention, is because now we have competitions where the audience is actually a part of the process, and that's what they want.
If G3 was live streamed, that probably would have been crazy.
If I remember correctly, it was live streamed on YouTube.
Was it?
I think so.
I wasn't there for it.
Again, correct us if we're wrong in the comments. But one thing that somebody actually pointed out last night, and I wrote this down because I thought it was a brilliant idea. Okay, so we all talk about how like Steve Aoki had a light show video in his music video, right? Cascade, if I remember correctly, was another one. Mm-hmm. There are dozens of DJs and music producers on Twitch that if we actually start interacting with them and actually start providing like visual stuff on their live streams, that is a way for us to put ourselves out to be seen by the greater music enthusiasts, especially if they're followers of these artists. It's a way for us to work with somebody who isn't so, I don't want to say insular with like the flow arts community, but it's a branch outside, and it's the symbiotic relationship that we have with these artists, right?
It creates the incentive.
Thank you. Exactly.
Evan's next big goal is to be in a Skrillex music video. I can see
Dude,
it.
I would love to be in this film, bro.
Dude, that would be awesome.
Well, and I know that the term professional Glover has been, dragged through the weeds. I used to proudly say that when I was still like working with EL and sponsored with EL, but that really does need to be a thing. We really do need to have like people who are considered professional Glovers, and you need to have that move forward. Like I will say this until I'm blue in the face. We now are where skateboarding was in the 90s, except we just lost Vans before we ever even got in the X Games.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Dude, when you put it like that, Jesus. Oh my
I don't
god.
want to.
You're like giving
Right.
me an anxiety attack just thinking
I
about
mean,
that right now.
the parallels are identical.
Yeah.
And then who was the major progenitor that came forward that really put skateboarding as like a household name? It was Tony Hawk. We all know Tony Hawk's name because Tony Hawk had the balls to go out and say, nope, this is my life. I love this. I care about this. And at the time, everyone was giving Tony Hawk tons of shit. Everyone was like, oh, he's super talented, but like, you're not going to be a professional skateboarder. That's not a real job. And he was like, no, watch this. And here we are. So
He did a kickflip into being famous.
he did a kickflip into being famous. He broke that glass ceiling.
I love that. No, I actually think it's interesting you brought up the skateboarding one, because if yet you remember from the first Art of Gloving video that Emazing Lights put out, what does Gummy say? Look what happened with snowboarding. First, snowboarding was just this thing, a fad, a trend, and now it's in the freaking Olympics. Like,
If gloving became an Olympic sport, I don't even know what I would do. That'd be so weird. It'd be weird to see them judging. Like, all right, here's the finger rolls event for gloving, and it's just a person doing 30 seconds of finger rolls, and then they judge it.
It's why I always harp on like when people are like, oh, to get more exposure, let's put gloves on dancers. That's the equivalent of saying, oh, to get more exposure, let's have a video of a dog on a skateboard. People know what skateboards are. People know what light gloves are. What they don't know is what people are doing with them and the art form that's behind it. People know what light gloves are. Putting light gloves on somebody who is not a glover does not help us at all. Like, I'm so sick and tired of people suggesting that we bastardize the art for the sake of exposure when it's exposure that isn't needed. Everyone knows what light gloves are. Like, people ask, like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a glover. And they're like, oh, what's that? And I'm like, oh, have you ever seen the gloves with the lights? And people are like, oh, yeah, I know what that is. Wait, you can actually dance with those? That's what we need to be focusing in on. Like, Emazing used to have a partnership with the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders where they replaced the pom-poms with easy lights, which was cool, and it was like bragging rights, and we were like, yeah, we're on the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
That was a thing?
Yes,
yes, that was an actual thing.
That was a thing. And
I need to look at this.
But did that do anything?
No.
It
still
didn't
need to
do
see-
anything. It made
still
everybody
need to
go,
see this.
oh, pretty lady have light up fingers now. Like, that's all it did.
That's gonna be me in like 2 minutes.
Okay, so let's
No
all
kidding.
remind ourselves that, and this is because since Dustin wasn't around when I saw all of this happen,
I'm a child, bro.
when it came to Emazing Lights, they hit national news. They were on Fox, they were on ABC, they were in Rolling Stone magazine, they were in LA Times, they were everywhere. Vice has done 2 videos now on gloving. There's the one that was in 2016 if I remember correctly, and now there's the one that happened in Vice Asia. Now I need to point this out because this is something that I want to say, because this is to dispel the doom and gloom. There is a explosion happening right now. There is this boiling point happening in Asia when it comes to gloving.
Oh, yeah.
Since Vice Asia just pointed that out, that is our indicator right now that we need to pay attention what's going on, because the next biggest YouTube channel that has the most subscribers for gloving,
Void Dreamers,
at 11.1k. Okay,
my people,
so
dude.
what they're doing over there is something that we need to start paying attention to. And like, I'm just going to say this right now, there is a time for talking and there's a time for action. So it's now time to put up or shut up. And we need to start paying attention to what they're doing and start learning what they're doing and try to bring it here.
Well, so here's the thing, right? America, with gloving, we have, the stigma set in place. It's like, oh, people only do this when they're on drugs, whatever. You have the thing that happened at EDC or whatever, where the girl died, and like that's when the gloving ban happened.
LA
and stuff.
2010.
Right?
Videos in the corner. Go check it out. I made a 30-minute video about it. Go ahead.
But that happened in America. You know what? I already know what they're doing in Vietnam, right? Vietnam, they're literally dispersing gloves as much as possible. They'll have 2-3 people, sometimes 5 people sharing one set of gloves to record a video, right? And they are gathering in the streets and gloving in the streets like street performers, but they're seshing out in public.
Yeah,
right?
You could see that in Lights On, where during Lights On, they were all basically passing around the same glove set, and you could just slowly see each diode turning red. Like, they were just hanging on to it by the skin of their teeth. They're a huge inspiration.
There's actually a news, what is it? It's kind of like a news interview that Void Dreamers was on from a Vietnam news YouTube channel that you can find. It went up a couple years ago.
I'll have it right here. I know exactly which one he's talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, yeah. And they talk about it, right? And they show clips, and it's literally like 40 people out in the street, and there's only 10 sets of gloves, and everyone's just watching. Everyone else without gloves, they're just practicing, right? And I feel like it's hard. It's not impossible, but it's difficult for us to do something like that because of the way our society in America is running right now, right? I couldn't go to downtown Richmond, right? I couldn't go into downtown Richmond, put on my light up gloves at 8 p.m. and then do that stuff. I'd be afraid of getting robbed, not gonna lie. But if I was in Vietnam and they accepted me, even though I'm American, right? I could go downtown Saigon and do that, or wherever all the Void Dreamers guys are, and I could do that, and literally no one would bat an eye, or people would sit down and watch, or whatever it may be, right? And I think that is just a barrier that we have, and I don't think there's any clear-cut way for us to overcome that, other than with time and persistence.
We have to keep throwing darts blindfolded.
I've had an idea because the culture in Asia is different, because that's just how people can just go outside at night and not have to worry, and there's so many people around. And this is just kind of just throwing it out there. I would want to see a gloving company market more to kids, because I could see gloving be like the new Beyblade or some shit. You know what I mean?
You literally were just hitting on my next point, because the one thing that I, as a content creator, want to do is find a marketing manager to market gloving for us, because I'm not business savvy. I know there's some people with business degrees within the gloving community. Hit us up if you want to take part of this. You should. We need a social media manager and a marketing manager, because obviously Emazing Lights was that for a while, but now they're gone. So now we need to find people who can help fill these shoes to help the community grow. And it's just one of the things that I have to concede to. We got to figure out how this gets marketed.
I think we also need to recognize that we're a little too complacent and accepting of the drug stigma, I think. It's not that you can ever necessarily separate the two. We all love going and finding Spunyans at shows and wrecking their brains, but I feel like there's a little bit we're too comfortable with that idea. And it's not to say that we shouldn't that we should look down on that side of the art form. Like we definitely shouldn't, but in the same breath, like the longer people hang on to this, like, yeah, this is, we're part, yeah, we're gonna stay stuck here. Like, we have to start breaking our own stereotypes. We can't keep falling into our own stereotypes over and over again like this. And if we're ever gonna want to market to kids or physical therapists or something, it's not that we need to separate it from the drug culture, it's that we need to carve another area, another plane of it, you know, because how many other comparisons could you make on this that it's like, oh, well, I don't like doing this normally, but I do like doing it on drugs. Like, there's a ton of other things out there in the world that are like that, but there are people who are partaking in that without being part of the drug culture. Like, we need to accept that this is a problem. We need to stop defending it and go, yeah, you're right, this does kind of look like a bit of a mess sometimes.
I agree.
Actually, funny fact.
Go ahead, Dustin.
Funny fact, I actually can't even glove when I'm on drugs.
I can't do drugs, so...
Well... so I can't.
I mean, I will even admit that I had what my mom loves to refer to as the Rumspringer's ears, is an Amish term with people running wild and they go do crazy animalistic things in their underwear. But eventually they come back home and they get back to their lives. And that was me a time ago. But to me, I definitely agree. We have to really actually address the stigma. And it's something that has plagued us for years. And I mean, ever since the gloving ban, it has been the predominant thing that people think about. I mean, I've showed my boss at work my own videos, and the first thing he would bring up was, man, this would look really good on acid.
Yep,
just, like,
every time.
Yeah, and it breaks my heart every single time, because to me it's more than that. There's something more going on here than people realize. And it is like, to me, when I discovered gloving, it was like, this is it. This is me. Like, this is how I wanted to be, because this was nothing I've ever seen before. I never want to follow what other people do. I want to always do something that I felt like was me. And when I found gloving, I was like, I found myself. You know, so it annoys me to death every time the stigma keeps coming up, and I hate talking about it because it doesn't go anywhere. It just loops itself in a never-ending story loop, and it drives me nuts. But no, I feel like the person that will help us is Greg Irwin. He is like, you know
OG.
what I mean? He is the
OG.
He was on Carson.
He was on TV. You know?
He was on Carson. Okay, he was freaking on Carson. He was on Bob. Like, he met with some of the biggest celebrities of royalty of Hollywood, showing finger fitness. So we have the capability of doing this again.
I don't necessarily think that like somebody like that will come along and necessarily save us, because Greg has been doing this for forever and then just, you know, happen to get involved with the gloving community. I think we need to look at him as an example. We need to start emulating these kinds of behaviors and have the gall to say, no, I am a performance artist. I have been my whole life, and this is a career, this is a life calling for me. This is a path that I want to take. And maybe it's just me taking, you know, gloving savagery a little bit too personally, but I feel like there's like this weird negative stigma in the scene that comes with wanting to define yourself as a professional glover, which to me I find kind of...
I agree to that.
I find kind of strange, because it's like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have gloving be like this underground drug fest in just its where it is, and then also yell at the professionals for wanting to get it forward. You know, like, without those professionals, you don't have Boss, you don't have IGC, you don't have those things. So there needs to be like a departure in both ways, where like the people who are daring to say, no, I want to make this my job and I want to do something with it that's beyond what it is, I want to bring gloving to where it is, you need to get out of these people's way. Stop judging them for wanting to take it this seriously. You know, people are like, oh, you take it too seriously. If someone doesn't, we don't progress.
saying
think a
that
good-
is gatekeeping. Just want to say that.
Right.
Saying that you're taking it too seriously, you are gatekeeping people from wanting to do something that you have no real say in it. Why are you preventing people? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Why
Get
people
out
say
of
that.
your own way.
But you kind of touched up on this a little bit, sorry, in earlier. But then I think when you look at things that start to become serious, like, oh shit, like I want to make this my life, right? Like you said, there's got to be incentives, right? What are some ways you guys think that are like other incentives, like monetary, right? Like I'm gonna put this right because knowing this, right, this at least puts us on a track to be like, okay, how can I achieve this, right? What is the incentive, right? So monetary is one, right? I feel like when you look at things like martial arts, right, there's always these competitions, these consistent competitions that are happening, right? So it's like, okay, competitions, like we talked about earlier, right? Are there other things you think that are great incentives to? Because there's a point where you get older, right?
Yep.
And then putting what goes on an older guy, let's be real, that looks kind of silly,
Goofy.
right? Goofy, right? We're not at that point yet where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go make gloving my full-time job, but there's got to be a little bit of reality here, right? So what are these avenues that we can hit that allow us to sustain this type of lifestyle as we get older, right? Teaching, right? Maybe performance.
One of the big things for a monetary gain is, and this really leans, like the counter to this is that gloving companies don't have money right now, and that's all good and fine. But what I've always seen is that in a lot of sponsorship circumstances, there becomes so little availability to actually monetize. And I think what needs to happen is there frankly needs to be a little bit of copyright and intellectual property respect going on. How about you pay glovers for content in, like, let's say I make a video with a new gloving product, right? And it's polished and it's focused on that gloving product. How about instead of sponsoring me to make that content and you give me things, for the promotional video I just did for you, there's a discount code attached specifically to that, and that monetary gain goes to only that glover. Or you, like, if I got paid like even like $20 to make a video for a company for them to have full ownership with it, I would be churning out content so much faster. Like, there needs to be a little bit more respect for the time for it. And I'm not dogging on anybody that just wants to be sponsored and wants to go that route, but there needs to be more recognition. And I think this is what EL really tried to do. And one thing that I really value with them is that without glovers being good at gloving, you don't have the inspiration.
This is why I'm so happy you're on here. Sorry, I love it. I absolutely love your fire right now. It is a huge inspiration to me right now. Like, you are motivating me. Here's the thing. One of the things that I've been feeling motivated to do is I want to expand the content creator pool. It was the thing that I started when I started 4 years ago. I started just doing audio podcasts. Scott Wilson started his little interview podcast, and I remember Kevin being on one of those. I still remember that episode to this day, and it was one of the biggest inspirations for me to keep going. I think it's time for me now to be like, if you want to be a content creator and you don't know what to do, I will be your editor. I will do it for free just so we can get the art to keep going. I don't care. Like, if it takes me weeks to do it, I will do it. But I want to expand the content creator pool. And it's slowly happening because Kevin started his podcast. I hear some members of IB want to do a podcast now. I have people lining up who want to come on to the show. So there is an interest growing here. And
who on IB wants to do a podcast? I'm in there and I don't hear about this.
I heard from people who were doing the IB comp. After the IB comp was done streaming, they were like, hey man, we should do a podcast. And
man, they talk a bunch of shit. I'll tell you what, I got that jersey for one reason. It's because I know that Joe he has a lot of passion for this shit too, and I think he might have seen all of this coming, where it's like we're gonna lack an online presence, right? Because IB formed some months after Kevin was gone, and everyone already knew that EL is just kind of on its way out. And realistically, what we need now is, it isn't one particular thing that everyone can look at, but that's like a starting point for us. But now it really is up to the entire community to like pick up on that and represent the entire community. But one of the big things that I feel like we're really lacking right now is different forms of content. And I'm not talking just short form content. I'm not talking about coverage, but I'm talking about everything that you can possibly imagine. Like, could you guys imagine what the very first video that I saw that was relevant to gloving?
What was it?
It was, if you guys have heard of the YouTube channel Kuma Films.
Oh, bro!
Yeah.
They did a video on gloving, and you know why I liked it? It was hella B-roll. It was very cinematic, right? And I was like, dude, this shit looks sweet, because it's B-roll, right?
Dude, in 2000, was it 14 or 15? They actually hit us up. They were like, "Yo, we want to come out to Hawaii and we want to shoot Aloha Nation." And then, but you have to pay for our flights or something, and it was like $3,000. And we're like, and we're like,
goodbye.
Okay, so if I was in your position at that time, and I wish crowdfunding was a lot more popular back then too, I would have been like, guys, we need to crowdfund this because we need to get, like, that would have been like the exposure, and it would have been Glover's putting out gloving content on another person's channel. And that's one of the things that I also want to try to do, is actually try to figure out how to reach outside of the gloving community in terms of content creators and try to like get that exposure.
Dude.
I think that on the note of like, the B-roll and whatnot, I would say that like Kevin and I both have kind of wanted that to happen a lot more. Like, yeah, like, again, if you're a hobbyist, post your videos. I'm not yelling at you, but there needs to be, again, acceptance of professionalism, acceptance of a higher level of content, like how Kevin and I both, like, I bought my camera that I'm streaming with right now for light shows, and it's a fucking monster. I mean, this camera is ridiculous, but it gives the videos more of a polish. It looks more those kinds of things. You have to dare to do that stuff. Like, I'm getting tired of just seeing constant bedroom shows, and which are great and wonderful, but like, especially with EL, like the lack of features, there wasn't somebody like doing that filming actively. We've kind of all gone back to a bunch of bedroom light shows, and bedroom shows are great. Some of my favorite shows are bedroom shows. But if we're trying to punch through that glass ceiling, we need more of what you were talking about, Dustin.
We need everything.
We need everything. We need, we need to have some standards for it.
This is why I wanted to get more people into content creating and like being as editors and collaborators and things like that. I already have a couple of people who have been trying to make content, wanting to collaborate with me, which is great. I'm happy. This is the year that we really need to start pushing forward on that. But yeah, no, I definitely agree. We need to learn how to polish off and make things pretty, because to me is fortune favors the bold, and we need to become bold. I mean, very bold.
Luck is just persistence meeting opportunity. That's all luck is. So if you don't be persistent, you won't have the opportunities.
Because, like, so short form content, you could argue, takes less time than doing something that's cinematic, right? Like, 100%. Generally speaking. And like, the issue that we're seeing now is, we're covering short form. That's kind of there. Bedroom light shows, that I feel like is a staple that exists, but we have a surplus of that. So the thing that we're missing now is polished light shows that are like professional, as well as B-roll light shows. I know that myself, Steamboy, and Psych, like, we work on that stuff right now. Like, but stuff like that takes so long, right? Like, the Resurrections video that me and Josh worked on, that took months of editing. We shot for 2 days straight in the blistering cold, and it took months of editing because he was doing it mostly on his own. The Vortex video that Scott did, right? We shot that within 8 hours, but Scott, because of the production value that he goes for, that took literally like 3-4 months before it was done. But so what happens is, like, you have this one big project, it doesn't get nearly as much as exposure as it could, or at least in my opinion it deserves, and then you have a void in between because we don't have enough people right now doing kinds of content like that. And by no means am I expecting 1 out of every 10 or even 1 out of every 100 people to have a camera like that and then record content like that and then edit content like that all on their own, because it's a lot of work.
It is. It's a
Like-
ton of work.
It's a lot of work, you know. For me, with all this, with this type of content, I'm always the storyboarding and ideas person, so I'll sit there and like 10 consecutive hours writing out the idea and then polishing the idea before we get done. No one's gonna sit down and, like, not no one, but like most people aren't gonna want to do that.
I don't think
Well,
most
and-
people actually think that way. I
Mm.
mean,
No,
I don't
and-
think they actually sit there and go, "Oh, I actually need to sit down and think through this."
No,
Well, and,
dude.
another issue that I see a lot with like content creation and posting and whatnot, I'm gonna dip a bit into psychology here, but no one can deny that seeing those little notifications, you know, so and so just liked your post, you get your little dopamine zaps, right? Like, you're like, this is awesome, this is great, I'm getting praise, everyone loves that. But the issue that we have, I think, is that GL gives that to us way too quickly, which then leaves us not hungering for it outside of other platforms. I think that's an issue, is because people are like, why would I want to rebuild all over again on YouTube when I'm a well-known name in Glover's Lounge? I could just post in Glover's Lounge, get my 200 likes, get my serotonins for the next like
That quick
week.
fix.
It's GL is such a quick fix, and I think people need to acknowledge that's a huge reason why we're stuck in GL, is because we haven't built that outside of it, especially with the EL features going down. They're not being taken down from what I know, but you know what I mean.
I mean,
So-
it takes months for it to even break over 2,000
Right.
views. Like, and that was not the case back in the day. I mean, they would
No.
put out a feature video, and that thing would hit well over 300K within a matter of hours.
Yes, it would just climb likes just within hours, and you know the amount of satisfaction that happened from that, you know, like of people like, yeah, I can get a good video in GL, but oh man, how good is it going to feel when I get a feature? So in a sense, we have to kind of work on our instant gratification addiction that's happening in GL, where don't post your best content to GL. Force people to go out into the other algorithms. Yeah, you're going to take a reach hit, but it's more important for individual Glovers to brand themselves on their own platforms and not just stay stuck in GL forever. And that doesn't mean don't post in GL. Certainly do, but just recognize what it's doing. Recognize that the longer we stay in this, frankly, echo chamber of GL and just continuing to receive our personal gratification that way, the incentive to go off on other platforms is just not there.
The thing that we need to bring back is the in the description on your posts in GL is click the link to watch in high quality, and you have to take the gamble of purposely posting your light show on GL in lower quality and then posting it in 4K 60 FPS on YouTube so that people can really experience it. I don't know if that's the case because people are lazy, right? The same kind of people that scroll through Facebook and see a thing on Glover's Lounge are the same exact people but older, right? On TikTok, where they're just like, oh cool, 15 seconds, next.
Yep.
Oh, this is insert person that has how many likes? Okay, cool, I'm gonna watch it for 45 seconds, right? Like that. It's weird because short form, I like, though I don't intend on ever doing it myself because that's not the kind of content that I would want to make, but I definitely see the value in it in terms of the kind of reach that it can generate. And I don't know. It's just the way that.
Well, you could always
Maybe
take
no.
your long form video and cut it into short form. That's the most optimal way to do it, right? You don't have to specifically record for short format. Just take whatever you got long format, put it into little clips. Even this podcast, right? Even this podcast, you could just take those little clips and wow, that's interesting.
Ooh, Peter,
right-
you gotta
right-
take clips.
For me, it's about gaining new eyes. That's at least that's where I'm at right now. Is how can I? I've been guilty of this for so many years, where I would go out to an event and I just give other Glovers light shows, and that the whole event just give other people's light shows. It was very rare for me, like within like maybe the last like 5 years. Well, except the last two, but where I would give new people light show, and that was a huge mistake. Right. So how do you get new eyes? How do you grow? How do you grow gloving? Right. So how do you get new? You post on TikTok because obviously their algorithm is better. You post on all these other short formats. But yes, you hit all the long format places as well to keep the culture there, right? And I think that's what's gonna be missing a lot with Emazing going down is you no longer see the culture, because originally when I first started, I saw the culture that Emazing put out and like, whoa, I want to be like that, right? Rather than okay, that's a cool video, right? But like being part of this greater thing, I think is gonna be missing for the time being, right? How do you paint that picture again for people to want to learn and grow from it?
You can also post long form on TikTok. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, like
I believe I have no. I believe
I
I
think the
have
max is
exactly
3 now.
one. Yeah, I have one video on my TikTok, and it's an entire light show.
Let's see, what's
And you can watch it this way. It's just it's smaller, so you have to.
Yeah, well,
right, and a lot of those videos pop off.
right. Well, here's the thing I also want to say for the community, because I know a lot of people have their opinions about platforms, right? If the one challenge I actually have for the community is go to a different platform that isn't Facebook, but choose one that you are comfortable with using. If you're comfortable with using Instagram, go to Instagram. If you're comfortable with using Reddit, go to Reddit, even though I think Reddit's it's more community based as it is, so it's kind of hard, but there are other like communities you can try to branch out into and get some eyes on it.
Well, and we need to accept the way that the algorithm and things work, because back in the day, like the short form content wasn't as popular. There wasn't that and we all need to admit how this trains our brains and trains our psyche to think of things. Nowadays, you have what is it, like 3 seconds or less to actually capture someone's attention long enough. So now what we need to recognize is that the long form content is no longer exposure. In my opinion, short form content is exposure, long form content is inspiration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's when somebody is actually want to do their research and actually like delve into the rabbit hole of what it is.
Yeah, they want to actually partake in your art and kind of have more of a relationship with it than just sitting there scrolling, being fed the short form content. So there needs to be both, but there needs to be like defined intentions with both. And short form content, as much as we don't like it, it is the future. We have to do it.
We have to
one
adapt.
way or another. We have to adapt.
You know what I've found out recently that is really interesting. My top viewed videos are me talking about gloving.
Yep.
It's not even like just that.
That is really interesting.
It's me talking about gloving. Like my tutorials, like my little short tutorials, get way more views than the actual show part. So there might be something to take on there.
Well, because people like information, right?
Right, you're
At the end
keeping
of the
their
day-
attention.
Yeah, people like information, and you're keeping their attention with short format. So it's like you're taking care of two birds with one stone there, right? Because you're using the comparison that Sari was using, where long form is for inspiration and short form is for exposure, right? You're using your exposure format, but you're exposing information, which then can lead people to inspiration. Like if you do a quick clip of you like doing your thing, right? Like that's just like, oh, this is cool. Next.
And then that's it. Right.
Yeah,
right.
like oh, that's cool. But then if you have someone talking about it, if it retains them, they'll be like, okay, what's like they won't be like what's next. They'll be like, what's next? Like, actually,
Let me try this.
yeah.
And I mean, YouTube, if you really want to try both formats of short content and long content, YouTube is the perfect place because they have YouTube Shorts, which is what's competing with TikTok. So if you really don't want to use TikTok, but you really want to adapt to using short form content, you always got YouTube. We have other places. To me, I don't want people to feel like they have to go to one particular platform. I want people to actually go and do the research and be like, you know what, this user interface works really well with me. I understand it. I feel comfortable working on this platform. Let me just try it here. And that's when everybody kind of forces themselves off of Facebook. And if Instagram is where a lot of them migrate to and it starts popping off there, great. If that migrates from there to TikTok or from TikTok vice versa or however it goes, but it migrates off of Facebook, that's what needs to happen.
Every
Honestly-
time that I have been recognized in public outside of a gloving event, and it has happened way more than I thought it would. Like, it has happened in grocery stores in different states where people have been like, oh, that's Starlight. And I'm like, what the f? But
I'm gonna buy
like,
these eggs, dude.
I'm just buying these eggs, man. Like, what? Ah.
Can you do the hand thing real quick?
Yeah, can you do the hand? One time I was out, it was like 10 at night. I was in like a Qdoba parking lot, and someone in a passing car shouted it as it went by. I was like, they were like, holy shit, it's Starlight. I was like, what is happening right now? Like, it is pitch black. How did you know this? But the point being that about 95% of those interactions, they did not mention Glover's Lounge. They didn't. They were like, I saw you on Instagram. I saw your feature on YouTube. Like, when I have been recognized outside of the Glover sphere, it has almost never been from Facebook.
Well, so
There you go.
Well, two things, right? Starlight, I would say that out of all of the EL sponsors that have existed, I would say that you have been the most marketable, right? Like you already had a brand, right? Starlight, you already had that. You already had a look that is incredibly unique, right? Like anyone could recognize you just at a glance.
I will
right?
wholeheartedly accept my pretty privilege. I will wholeheartedly accept
Like-
that. Like,
So like you having all of that like may have been like just sheer luck and coincidence, but it was probably one of the best moves that EL could have done because you already had this foundation ready and they just got to build up off of it.
pretty
So,
much, I pretty much already knew what I was doing because this is not my first performance art that I've been this involved with. And when I came in on the scene and I was like, I'm just going to treat it the same way, EL kind of went, oh, she knows what she's doing. Okay, like we're gonna chomp at the bit at this, you know,
We're
like
just gonna give
when
you
we
the
would
reach
do,
and let you go off.
yeah, like when we would do photo shoots, like the photographer could just puppeteer me and do whatever because it wasn't my first rodeo. It wasn't my first time being in that circumstance. So for me, I think what kind of paired with that was, yes, there was a lot of like the shine and the excitement of like, oh my God, this is happening to me. I'm getting like the notoriety and whatnot. But when it came down to actually like do the thing, like act like Starlight, act like a figure, I could click into it really fast. And I knew, and there wasn't as much, like, I didn't have stage fright with it. It wasn't like, oh no. It was like, yes, I'm here. I know how to do this. Do with me what you will. And they took it and ran with it.
Well, the other thing that I was going to bring up is like less related to this, and it goes back more on where we post. And I think there's a level of I guess embarrassment may not be like the correct term, but it's the best one that I could use right now.
Yeah.
A lot of Glovers have like embarrassment, and
The
I
word
think
you're looking for is bashfulness.
like
No,
I think,
embarrassment is kind of the right word. It kind of is because, like, again, with the stigma of it, that when people are like, what do you do? Be like, oh,
I play with
I'm-
my hands.
I play with my hands and a lot of people like it. You know, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
how do I explain this?
It's
But
like
continue.
it's about the same way as like a YouTuber. I'm a YouTuber.
Yeah. Because
I don't know, man. Saying I'm a YouTuber is a lot easier than saying I'm a Glover. Like, that's a lot easier.
Okay,
Like
I will
Austin
concede
Lennon
to
had
that.
Austin Lennon had made a post the other day where he was saying like, gloving is in this position right now where we need to really stimulate growth, right? And he
Yeah.
was like, post on your public page. I'm guilty of it. I don't want to do that. But like to the content thing, honestly, I think the second best place for people to actually post would be Facebook Reels behind TikTok. Because think about how many people are scrolling through Facebook. And think about the demographic.
Facebook is still the biggest platform, right?
I feel like TikTok may have more active users. And it is demographic, right?
I think there is more content on TikTok, relatively speaking. Of course,
Yeah.
TikTok's age in terms of a number has lesser content than Facebook does overall because Facebook has been around for longer. But in terms of what content is on TikTok, how it's being interacted with, and the reach that it's getting, TikTok is beating the shit out of Facebook right now.
So just checked real quick because I typed in biggest social media platform 2023. Facebook is still the most popular social media platform overall, but TikTok is the app of choice for younger generations. So
Yes.
just want to point that out.
But you post on both, right? Like
Yeah.
you use Facebook Reels because it takes exactly one lucky Facebook Reel to get shared by some bot account, by someone's grandma, right?
Yep.
By whatever, and then it spreads like wildfire, right? Like if one person reaches out or makes contact with 10 people, and then those people each share with 10 people, right? You have 10 plus 100, 110 people, and then those 100 people that got shared to also do 5 more people. That's an absurd amount, right?
Well, and that's how TikTok's algorithm works. For every
Right.
one view, it puts your video on, I think it's like 7 or something For You pages. For every one view, it puts it somewhere
Really?
else.
I
Yes.
did not know that.
Yes, that's why TikTok's algorithm snowballs the way that it does, is because of the For You page. The For You page is so actively trying to find ways to put it on there.
At the when I was getting like when I was at the peak of my viewership for one of my most recent videos, I remember posting a video, and the moment it posted, there was 200 views on it. I was like, "There's no way! Like, is it fake?" But yeah, it's part of me still doesn't believe that. Like the moment it posts, 200 views. Are you kidding me?
But think about it now, like it's all a numbers game. 200.
It is.
So now you have reached to 1,400 different For You pages, and say maybe half of those actually retain anything. So 700. Look at it. Boom. That's another 4,900.
Well, and people are a little fearful about posting on TikTok, understandably, because they're so used to what's happening like on GL and Facebook, right? Like the positive comments and the bumping would like cause a video to become more and more and more viral. When on TikTok, the TikTok comments are kind of like what YouTube comments used to be. Like, remember
Very
that being a meme of
same.
like,
Turn
it's
off
the
the
exact same thing. Like, yeah, turn off the lights. Like, the YouTube comments used to be the meme of like the cesspool of the internet. Now it's happening with TikTok. But what a lot of people don't understand is on TikTok, you want those comments. You want people to bully you. You want people to get into fights. Because it happened to
Keeps on
me.
bumping your thing, dude.
I went accidentally viral on TikTok for a Rubik's Cube. It's still going. It's sitting at like 6-7 million views, and it propelled me to 10K followers in like 2 months.
Over
Because
a
what
Rubik's
I did
Cube.
over a Rubik's Cube, I posted a video, time-lapse kind of thing, of me scraping the stickers off one of my cubes and re-stickering them because they were all ratty and old. What happened was the plastic tool that I was using to scrape off of it was in the shape of a razor blade. And I didn't know at the time that TikTok was super like ferocious about trigger warnings. Like, again, I don't really think I did anything wrong, but as a content creator, you kind of have to just jump through hoops and whatnot. So everyone lost their minds over this video of people arguing in the comments about whether or not I'm a bad person for not putting a trigger warning. And I even came out and was like, oh, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this. I didn't mean, and the TikTok comments were kind of like, we're not talking to you, get out of here. And so I was like, okay. And I just let them fight. And the video is still going. It happened by such accident. And now because of that, one of my long format videos on TikTok, one of my light shows has 40,000 views.
It's free real estate.
Now it's no longer circulating, but so many people, they want the praise, and we all do. We all want the praise. We all want that, knowing that what we created was beautiful. But the more afraid of the TikTok comments you are, the less successful you're gonna be. You want them to fight. You want it. Trust
Something
me.
about that is like super poetic, right? Like,
Right.
here's me scraping stickers off my Rubik's Cube. People are like, hey, that's really offensive. And someone else is, no, it isn't. You're dumb. And then you're just like,
It's literally the YouTube comment section.
It's the YouTube comment section all over again because
I
like
mean, those poor cat videos, I swear. With all the
Markiplier's number one video still being meow. He
mean-
can't escape it. He can't.
I've had a conversation in one of my comments for like 30 minutes, and like I kept asking the same question over and over, and it felt like he was getting genuinely angry, or whoever the heck it was. And I was like,
Yep.
thanks, bro. You're feeding my algo."
Yep, a little bit of bait. You have to have a little bit of bait with it.
You
and
gotta
recognize
bait,
that-
exactly.
Because
this is so
like
toxic, bro.
it is. It's toxic, but if you like it's toxic, but if you kind of go back to some of the olden years of like when gloving was a little bit more Wild West, I mean, the GL comments that used to happen, if you kind of go back to that mindset a little bit and recognize that TikTok really is like exposure is exposure is exposure. For every comment you get, it plops it on more For You pages. Every time you reply, it pops it on more For You pages. So you kind of need to have almost like a bit of a court jester attitude. That you're like, yeah, that's right.
You do.
Get mad. Get mad. And it's not that you want to troll people or purposefully piss people off. Of course not. But if someone comes in your TikTok video and there's a fight happening in the TikTok video, you have a good day. Because that's going to just go. It's going to start getting propelled. And everybody opens the TikTok comments. I do it because it's hilarious. Like the TikTok comments are so funny to read through. So if somebody gets this on your For You page and they're like, why is this on my For You page? I'm going to open the comments and try to figure out what's going on. They might engage in that fight, which just makes it zoom even further.
Engagement
Honestly-
is the currency of the realm.
Yes.
Honestly, so you get that little bit of dopamine when you see like a plus, like the one notification for a light show, like, oh, cool,
Yep.
got 3 likes. The dopamine that I receive when I go to see a post that has 2 likes but 650 comments, and one of them is like, show 600, like, dude, like, like, I see that, I know I'm about to have a good time.
You're
Like,
talking like on GL, right?
yeah, well, like, it could be a
I
light
see a
show.
lot of those. I see a lot of those.
Well, like one instance was like a light show of like someone's like, I've been gloving for 3 months. Here's my light show, and it's like some pretty girl, 80 likes, whatever. Comments 500. I'm like, what the hell happened in here?
Yep.
This is just like some person. It's like, cool. I hit my like, I did my due diligence, and then I'm like, oh my god, people are just being dumb in here. This is great. This person's getting free likes.
Yeah.
She did 3 finger rolls, and these dudes are just losing it in here because they're arguing over what?
I mean, at one point, anytime Teddy would post a video, it turned into a battle royale free-for-all argument, and it wasn't even like, it wasn't even about the freaking video, man. Like, it was like, I got at one point, I'm like, guys, you're letting this guy live in your head, for free, rent-free. Calm down. Like, it was ridiculous.
People love fighting. People love fighting. Could you imagine? Ready? I know it'll have nothing to do with gloving, but could you imagine how crazy it would be if UFC fighters did one round where instead of their gloves, they just put on LED gloves? It'd be insane. Like, they just beat them up, the whites are like stained in blood, but like people would lose their mind, right? That's bigger than being on Shark Tank. Dude. Like
Okay,
Evander
I
Holyfield
mean-
just boxed Manny Pacquiao with easy lights, right? He punched
think
him
it
and
would
no
be funny
change.
to see that, seeing them wearing like the iNovas, and then when they punch, they all lights up. It's like, oh, he got a really good punch. Look how solid that hit was. Like,
Dude, like I think, well, because like bare knuckle boxing is actually a fighting sport that's coming up right now, right?
Mhm.
Like the difference between wearing white gloves and bare knuckles is literally nothing.
No.
So I'm just saying, like, because I mean, it is bad because it's like it literally does nothing for the art, but people would love to see that.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like you can buy these gloves on so and so, right? Well, we can't do that anymore, but it's like if you want the gloves that these fighters had, here you go. But it's just like I said, people love fighting. That's the big thing. That's why MMA is so big, even though it's so gruesome. That's why drama is, because it's just fighting with words. Like that's why those things pop off.
Pit Battle's just gone to a whole new level.
Oh, I'm telling you, bro. If I get to fight Joe Cosmo with my lights on, but I will fight that guy.
Oh my god.
I'm kidding, Joe. Not really.
Well, and I have faith that another golden era will rise. I do. I have faith that that will happen again. It's just, how long is it gonna take for us to get there, and how burnt out are the big players gonna get before it happens? It's not that gloving being that level of popularity is permanently over. I mean, in a sense, we've kind of gotten shoved back into the underground. We're kind of in a bit of a reset.
So
That's
rather-
happening.
This is a blank slate.
I actually just got the perfect term for it, because this actually was in a conversation with Mag and Will, one of my teammates, last night. They coined this point in our time the Great Gloving Depression, because of how everything is right now. We just lost Emazing Lights. They were like, dude, we're all going to a recession, and now gloving is literally going to have its own form of a recession. And it's like, yeah, and they're like, dude, this is the Great Gloving Depression. I'm like, that is like the perfect term to describe this time period right now. But
That implies that we're gonna get gloving World War One soon.
that's just,
Or World War Two. Sorry.
World War
just
II.
gonna say-
We already had World War One with the OSMs.
Oh,
Oh, God.
my
That
god.
was World War One.
Jesus.
No.
Oh my god.
Well-
Okay.
Well, from my perspective, right, going on 3 years, EL leaving just leaves us at a blank slate, which I feel like for most ways to progress from here is a very good thing, honestly. It's not like they were doing anything for the last 3 years anyway, right? They
Right.
have one of their sponsors put out a video that they worked on themselves, and whatever. They're constantly putting things on sale, just getting rid of stock, whatever.
And I mean,
Like-
I even pointed this out a few months ago on a couple of episodes on the Glowing Table Talks, that I see some changes that are happening for the better, but there was a lot more changes I was seeing happening for the worse. And this was it. This was starting to scare me months ahead of the time, because I saw what was coming. I saw the major sales coming out, and I'm just like January.
Oh,
of
the rating was on the
2022.
wall.
Yeah, January 2022, there was a massive sale where things were going over 65% discounts. I'm just like, this is not good. This is scary. And
Right,
I was
and, like-
telling people, and people were like, don't worry about it. You're crazy.
I already
Well,
knew
like-
it was gonna happen, bro.
COVID and supply chain issues certainly had an effect on a lot of things, but in my opinion, I don't think it's as big of a killer as people are giving it credit for. I think it was the final nail in the coffin for a series of decisions and a series of things that had happened. And at first, what I saw happening with COVID, I actually was kind of like, oh, cool, we get a reset. Because we're going to pull everybody out from everything. Everybody's going to go back to just kind of minding their own business. Maybe some interpersonal, like, community drama can chill the hell out for a little while. But just seeing everything that, like, kind of really one of the biggest beginnings of the ends was the end of IGC. That was huge.
That heralded everything.
Back before I retired, there are actually some clues being in the sponsorship where it's like they're changing some stuff, like
Yeah.
with the sponsorship code gift cards where like they wouldn't be as much anymore. Like they'd be only like $50, whereas opposed to some people were getting 200. They cut down the sponsors. There were certain people in the program that just left out of nowhere. and there's like a big giant question mark, and so there were at the time I didn't really understand what was actually going on, but then now that we're here, you know exactly what went on.
Yeah.
Right. They just ended up losing a lot more money than they should have.
Yep. A lot more.
And it's like, I don't know. From my perspective, it feels like a lot of people didn't believe, nor did they want to believe, that this kind of thing was happening. But
I didn't.
Because I came in from, like, my perspective, right? I came in and I saw the biggest company not really doing much. Like, that's what I saw. And then I see the sales, and I immediately put two and two together. This company's gonna leave in X amount of years, right? I think when I saw it, right, I was thinking like maybe 5 years it would be gone. And it did happen a lot sooner than I feel like most people could have ever expected it. But I was like, I also didn't have an emotional connection with it, A lot of people, I would compare it to like a relationship that they don't want to die.
Yep.
Because that's kind of what was happening. Like, they were just kind of lingering around doing this and that here and there. But at the end of the day, like, I personally was already ready for this because I didn't really care. And that's why I've already been on the forefront of, it is up to us, it is up to the leaders of each community to do what they can to fill this void that is left with EL being gone.
And I had an idea, and this was actually a question I was going to ask Kevin when he was on the first time, and I totally spaced on it. But this actually could be a great incentive for different regions of Loving. So I don't know how well you guys actually know about like Indonesia, Malaysia, and all that stuff, and how the religion is, but a lot of them are Muslim. But it's not a very developed country, right? They send a representative to Mecca to represent that region. And I think we should actually try to incentivize when we actually get another G3 type event, to actually incentivize the local communities to crowdfund to try to send a person of their region to represent them in the competition and actually have like local competitions to happen. And that was the thing that I was going to ask Kevin the first time around, was like, hey, would you actually try to run a competition that crowdfunds somebody who wins the competition to go represent Hawaii to go to G3? So that way there is the Hawaii representation, essentially.
Crowdfund for representatives from each local community to enter into G3. That's what you said, right?
Basically, like say one person from Hawaii, one person from Seattle, one person from Denver, one person from Dallas, one person from New York. Like the local scene crowdfunds that person's like airfare to go and come back.
You have a champion. You have a champion.
Yeah,
that sounds really fun. That sounds really fun. Would people actually do it?
That's the question. But that's something I think as an idea I would love to see, because it shows that one, the local communities are working together in their own little areas, and they want to have somebody go and show like, hey, they're from my hometown. I can root for this person and cheer this person on as they watch them go through the comp. You know what I mean? Like, it's the incentive to have us gather together and have that social aspect that is so crucial to gloving, in my opinion, just like how it is for any other fandom. You know, like, again, I always use Magic the Gathering as a prime example, but D&D is another great example. You guys, people meet up into somebody's house and they sit at a table and play a game together. Like, that's the incentive I want to try to bring, is where people are like, I'm going to go watch this with all my friends so I can watch this one person who we sent to G3 to compete and watch them get through it. Like,
I think that's a super dope idea. I don't know if it would be
realistic.
Well, and I don't necessarily see as high of a need for the in-person local representation. I don't, it's not that I don't think that it's important. It is, of course. It's, the bread and butter and all of the things, but I don't think representation is necessary. I don't think we're lacking in that right now.
Oh, no.
The honest truth is we're lacking.
I saw it as more as an incentive of like local communities actually working with themselves to actually like foster themselves and work together, and then they can actually like get to a point where they can actually send somebody be a part of like this big worldwide tournament where it represents their region, you know. And I mean, like, I kind of want like that kind of sport thing where it's like, yeah, my team from Mexico is going to the Olympics, and yeah, I get to cheer them on.
Kind of
The
that's
cost of
kind of
living.
what the cost of living, the cost of flight.
Living in Hawaii, bro.
Well, that's why.
That means we send.
That's kind of what. That's kind of what the Legends bracket within IGC kind of
kind of was.
Kind of did.
Yeah.
It kind of already was that, and it worked within reason and those kinds of things. The biggest elephant in the room constantly is that the gloving industry itself is flat broke. That is the problem. Like, if we, you know, like if gloving itself weren't flat broke like it is, I don't know if we would be having these kinds of conversations. I don't think we would. Go ahead, Kev.
Sorry, no, because you're totally right. But so I'm part of the Smash community, right? And I don't know if you guys keep up with Smash.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, but Nintendo is like, yo, like Smash. They don't have Nintendo's support at all whatsoever. It's actually kind of like to the point where it's like they're trying to shut down Smash competitions, right? So like the infrastructure needs to come from within. Like, we can't just be spoon-fed from another big company to be like, okay, let's run the shit. No, like, we all needed to just be doing our own little things, right? There needs to be infrastructures in place within every local community, not just like this one thing. And to be completely honest, I actually put things like lights on at a higher value than IGC. I'm being totally honest. In Lights On, you had representatives from all different countries, bro. Like, you got
way easier.
And the engagement's easier. Like, we need to create a more self-sustaining type of competition where it's like, okay, you can have this many competition. I know we're getting a little bit more into like gambling, right? There's a big gray area there. But like, I mean, we're kind of already doing that. I believe there needs to be infrastructure set in place there, but there should also be a big live competition. Yeah, whatever. But I think right now, like where we are, we have to start from baby steps, like slowly get there, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what the Smash community did. Like, there was a point where it was dying, but they just had consistent, sustainable competitions, right? And they live stream it, and then eventually more things will come naturally, right? But I would really love to see more of an international type of competition, simply because you can't expect everyone to fly out to one place and then it be only one day type of thing.
I would say the only barrier that we have to break through with that is when we use the Smash comparison, right? Smash by nature is a competitive game, right? It's a fighting game. Like, the whole point of you playing it is to be better than whoever you're playing against.
It's actually a party game, Dustin.
It's a party game? Yeah, get out of here.
It is.
Mario Party?
Actual fighting game, Dustin. You can't use a fighting stick for it.
It's Mario Party. That's a party game. But you don't see Mario Party competitions, because that's dumb.
No, you don't see it.
Okay, I don't see it, alright? Maybe Hawaii is weird, bro. Maybe they got Mario Party competitions and everyone's like beating each other up because they rolled a 3 instead of a 6 or whatever. But my point is, like, gloving inherently is not nearly as competition driven, and that's a barrier that we have to break through. Because I do think competitions are probably the easiest point for us to start with growth within our community, because that's going to create a lot of content, and that content is what we spread all over the place in order to gain exposure, right?
Yeah.
Because it starts with engagement. Exposure starts with engagement. But the best way that we have this engagement does start from within. I feel like it's easier to generate the engagement with, as bad as it sounds, it's easier to get the engagement in order to get the quality content that we want from GL first. from the people that are in GL and are active within GL, because that's where it'll start. That's the seed that we need to plant, and then we put it everywhere else. Because then that's how we'll get new Glovers. They're like, oh my god, this is so cool. It's a battle, right? Like, one thing that I'll always look at is the Mez versus Jest lights on whatever, right? Yeah, like, I'm just like, yo, this is insane, right? Like, this is, like, literally it's two people fighting each other to the same song. And it's insane. It's a boss fight sounding song. Like, this is crazy. Like,
yeah, well, it's clear that we need to work on both internal and external.
absolutely.
Right.
With what Kevin was saying, like work with what we actually do have. We don't take stock in how big our online community is as much as we should, because there's like this double-edged sword of like, we don't want gloving to, you know, purely exist online because the growth isn't necessarily there, but that doesn't mean that we should throw our online presence out the window. We have it. It's like the only thing we have right now that we're like really certain of is the online community has not failed. It's still really, really aggressively, loudly active and still working and still, I mean, you know, like we're having this podcast right now. So I agree with Kevin as well that there needs to be something along the lines of like a lights on. And I think what also needs to happen is there needs to be consistency with a lot of these competitions, you know, like and I know like Lights On was tied to EL and EL is gone, but let's pretend for a second that Lights On wasn't tied to EL, that it was somebody else doing it in a way that would be more permanent than that kind of a business. Being able to count on that season after season after season would like generate a ton of hype and a ton of content and things like that. Like I appreciate these like unique competitions, right? I definitely do. I appreciate them because it gets Glovers to do different things, but we can't have this menagerie of just nothing but unique competitions that are like these individual one-offs. We need to have that competitive almost league brought back again. We need that kind kind so that there's some consistency of it, so that it's more accessible. A league would be perfect.
A league would be crazy.
Like, oh my god, remember when like they first came out with the concept of the rankings, and a lot of people are like, that's dumb. And then the rankings kept going, and everybody cared.
Well, the thing is that there's storylines in those rankings. There's storylines in Lights On, right? Where it's like, you don't really get that. Not like, that's what's missing. Like, oh, man, this kind of goes really deep. Like, also like that superstar type of like of era, like you don't see that nowadays, right? Like who would you say is like today a superstar, modern superstar? People like Trump, right? Or like maybe
that one
even
dude, that one dude Puppet. I think
no, like after I appreciate it, doesn't.
Okay, so if we're talking most recent,
right?
if we're talking most recent, I would say RJ is one. Trump definitely is another one.
Right, but they haven't had the stage. You know what I mean? Like besides just posting on GL, like there isn't the stage to be like, okay, yeah, like he won this huge thing, right? We can, they're all beasts, but like there needs to be a consistent stage where people can perform, and this is how stories are created, and that's what adds to the culture of gloving, right?
Totally, you're totally right. Rephrasing our terminology that we're lacking a stage. That I've never thought of it looking at. That's more how we need to be focusing on this, is that we don't have a stage anymore.
Yep, we had it. EL took it.
Well,
Sadly.
Kevin, you better drop your comp now, bro. You better get to work.
What I'm working on isn't quite at that scale, but
I believe
even
you'll
know.
get to that scale, though. You have to start somewhere.
I honestly think that we actually have plenty of people who want to throw competitions. There are people who are crafting competitions. I honestly think now we really need to get into a room and really sit down and have a serious discussion, and because it's us coming together for everybody else.
Well, and on that note, I think one of the biggest things we need to leave in the past with this era is that, like, kind of the company infighting and company loyalty. And I know I'm one to talk. I was an EL sponsor for, 7 years, so I know I'm one to talk, but I'm bothered by this idea of company exclusivity. even when you're sponsored. I'm bothered by that because, you know, like, let's look at like professional gamers, and I don't know any of these logistics off the top of my head, but you have like a sponsored gamer. They're not sponsored by one brand.
It's like an MMA fighter. It's like an MMA fighter.
Right, and I'm not proposing...
How many stickers are on a NASCAR vehicle?
I'm not necessarily proposing that happen in gloving, but this idea of that the glovers are fighting for the companies, that needs to... No. Like, supporting a company, yes, and like promoting for them and those kinds of things, that happens by proxy if you just like their products. But I've always had an issue with this, like, you know, you're this sponsor, okay, you can only use like this technology in your videos and stuff. It's just not as, it's not realistic.
That's gatekeeping.
That's gatekeeping.
I've thought of sponsorships recently in other ways. Like, you see like this tube light, like this light behind me that I always use in all my TikToks. I'm trying to get sponsored by them.
Yep.
So that I could sell like be an affiliate for them or something. Like,
You're
not
on
like
Amazon, right?
lights. I am on Amazon. I had signed up for it, but like it was really pretty recently.
Need I remind everyone?
Yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Need I remind everyone that IGC was sponsored by Monster Energy Drink? We can get there again.
It wasn't Monster. It was Glow.
It was Glow Energy.
Glow beverages.
What about like the earliest ones? Like the early IGCs, were they sponsored by Monster at all? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't have that information.
I know that 16 was the biggest one for like others. As far as I know, in terms of the numbers, again, I could be wrong.
Right.
And I only ever participated in IGC 15 and 16. I wasn't really actively gloving at the time for the older ones. So I think that 16 was the one that had the biggest amount of company sponsorships and things like that. But yeah, I ultimately think that we need to put to bed this idea of that the companies being the entities in the way that we saw them before. I don't know how to word that quite right off the top of my head, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not... I'll back up. A thing that I noticed with EL's model is EL did a lot of successful things because it treated the sponsors as celebrities. And I know I'm saying that myself, of being like, yeah, it was great, it was awesome, but I really saw a correlation there, because I didn't necessarily want to be part of Emazing just because Emazing was Emazing. It was because I wanted to be like Teddy. I wanted to be like Blitzen. I wanted to be like Mumbles. I wanted to be that kind of inspiration. And I think we kind of got away from that a little bit, where the companies were expected to like generate that and have that platform, when really it's the other way around. We all have our inspirations.
It should be in the individuals.
Yes.
Like what it is, what it was now before it like started dying and stuff is we had the companies, and then you have a list of people that are under them. But what it should be is you have all the individuals, and they're backed by companies.
Yes.
Like in a competition setting, they're fighting for themselves, and the companies are rooting for them, right?
Right.
Whereas with esports, with League, right, you have the player, and they're fighting for the company, when the company should be fighting for them.
Well, I mean, they get paid salary, so that's
yeah, it's a different story for sure.
Yeah, but that is an example with League of Legends. Who took League of Legends esports into that, oh my god, this is the hero of the story? It's Faker. Everybody knows Faker's name. Like, even so, yes, like that dude is a bot.
He's a living script, bro.
He is a script, and how many people study Faker? How many people put extra time into the game because of Faker? I don't want to make it sound like we need some like Kardashian cult of gloving, but like having figureheads that get the support of everybody rather than them supporting who they think is best, it works better in that direction. Like I'll watch Faker clips and it makes me want to start playing again.
I'll do it.
I'm not going to. I'm not. I don't think I I don't
Well,
think I'm
it's-
going to. I value my mental health too much.
Same.
Right?
It's funny hearing that in off season, Faker tends to play Singed. Really did something for me because I'm a Singed one trick, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, Faker? Why is he playing
Wait,
Singed?
Faker's playing Singed? Singed is relevant and competitive? Like that kind of
Absolutely
thing. And
not. But that's fun.
No, but important parallels are to be drawn here. You know, like I didn't want to be part of EL because EL was EL. I wanted to be part of EL because I wanted to be like the artists that they were promoting. I wanted to be like them, not necessarily with EL. And like, it could have been any of them. It really could have been any of the companies. It wasn't that it wasn't EL in particular. It's that I saw the value of that they gained a lot of company support by using our images for inspiration and using what we were doing for inspiration.
That's so funny. I joined EL because I was like, I'm just gonna get all the free shit and give it to my community. Like I didn't even give a shit in the beginning, to be honest. I'm being honest. I didn't give a in the beginning, and then I fell in love with it. And I was like,
dude,
oh.
Robin Hooded that shit, bro.
So
You know
yeah,
what?
maybe
Whatever works though.
if going forward, you know, like if companies can kind of shift gears a little bit on how Glovers are treated, if we can shift gears a little bit and recognize that those figures are important. They're important to a lot of people. They bring a lot of eyes into gloving. They bring a lot of stuff into it, and we need to hyper focus on that a lot more, like it was, but do it a bit better. I don't know what better looks like, but
I think the first baby step, in my opinion, is that since we know that engagement is the currency of the realm for online exposure, I think we just need to take the baby step and just engage more with other gloving light show videos, especially off of Facebook. You know what I mean? And the reason why I say this is because, as you said, we're kind of a broke community. We're not whales here. So ways that we are able to generate those revenue funds is through the engagement that is actually essentially free. I mean, the liking, sharing, and subscribing to channels and following people on platforms is the way that gets them the revenue that they need to keep going. And all you're doing is just these little steps. And we do it all the time in GL anyway, so why not transfer that energy that we spent on GL on like another platform? And all we have to do is just choose one other platform. Doesn't matter which one you choose, it is a personal choice, but we just need to branch out from Facebook.
People are lazy. That's the answer though.
I know. It's
I'm
time to
lazy.
stop being lazy.
I'm lazy, bro.
I've
would
been
you know
coasting
what?
for the past few years. I've definitely been coasting.
I just want to post on Facebook and YouTube, and that's where I'm at right now.
I
mean-
want to chomp at the bit at like music video type stuff. I want to
Me and
see
Josh will come out to
Glovers.
Colorado one day.
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll bring
I-
Scott too.
I don't know exactly how, but I want to try to get besides just the content creating pool get bigger and actually start fostering that into like its own kind of community and getting that going. Definitely want to try to like reach out and really push ourselves to go on to like DJs Twitch streams and actually do live shows there. I think an idea that McKinley is going to have is actually try to get Buwas onto Twitch, where we get a well-known DJ to come onto our channel and we do a live Buwas right there, which there's a whole video on it. You can go check it out on Worldwide Glover's YouTube channel and go subscribe to it because it is criminally undersubbed.
I'm gonna call it right now. Ready? EL's gone. 5 years. Within the next 5 years, we're gonna see slander come back to gloving, and that's gonna be huge. You know how? Because like you
The
know,
war flashbacks you just gave me to Lights On Season 1, when the whole
Slander.
competition was just waterboarded with slander the entire time. The war flashbacks.
like we're gonna see slander come back, and it's gonna be crazy. Kevin's gonna like. I just put that seed in Kevin's head. He's like, I need to get slander back in this. Look at his face. He's scared.
I really hope I hope that this like podcast gets big enough that he would see it and be like, my community's in trouble. I must go. Like,
Yeah, he rips his shirt, right, and it's an S, but the S is for slander. I don't know. I can't remember what his Glover name was.
if I remember correctly, it was TNT Immortal.
Immortal, dude. That should go hard. Not gonna lie, that's a hard Glover name. No, if he comes back, I think that would be insane, right?
Just to support the community. Just to support.
Because he has a platform already as as their duo, right? As a producer. So like it takes literally zero effort for him to just turn that switch on again. Whether or not he wants to do it, I don't know. People leave for personal reasons and whatever it may be, but if that happened, that would be.
I mean,
nuts.
there are other ways to contribute to the community that isn't doing live shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of also like what Inky Boys is kind of doing, like a lot of the more big name teams I think could probably stand to step in and do some more stuff. Like teams doing their own branded things, like their own branded competitions, or like, you know, you guys did IM Academy and things like that, a resurgence of that as well. The team culture got a bit stale, and I think, and I say this as well with, you know, being well overdue on launching Agni Kai Season 2 with LLB, but like things like that, like Squid Games, like that was hype. That was really, really hype. That was really, really good.
Stressful.
That was genius.
Round
Oh,
one
of
was
course
so
it was.
stressful.
Of course it
streamed
was.
For 4 hours, dude. It's too much. 44 entries.
That's it? Nah.
We did it all in one sitting, dude.
That's
You
freaking
did.
nutty. That's
I
amazing.
mean, me and Seaway did Mr. Freckles' IGL comp round 1. We did it all in one sitting, and it was 4 hours of footage, and I had to break that up into 2 parts just because there was so much of it. But that's another topic for another video, because how to curate the content for competitions is a completely different thing that we probably have to address. And
Well,
I
we're
feel like
working
that's
on it.
another community thing that everybody needs to start talking about.
Kev and I certainly have a lot of tips.
For making content for the competition,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. On how to kind of like structure things and kind of where your mindset's coming from. Like, I think he and I are very like-minded in a lot of that.
Dude, when I host comps, the whole competition, it's not hard to me. It's like
It's not.
It's super simple, man. Like, it doesn't need to be complicated.
You just got to keep it going. You just got to keep the schedule.
The show must go
Used to
on.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you just kind of get into the habit of it, get into the swing of it, stick to what you know, stick to what works. And the other big thing is just dare to stand up for your own ideas. Like, if you want to do something different, be confident that you're doing something different.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree to that.
I like what I'm doing right now. This comp's been fun, dude.
Anthology, yeah.
Yes.
Dude.
Brilliant idea.
So it's one of those things where it's like I'm happy to see how it's unfolding, but I want to see the end product. That was the goal, right? Like, I don't know if any of the people that are participating in it like know, but like my whole thing behind why I did this is I like to see experiments. I like to see how people respond to something that's really different, right? Put people outside of their comfort zone. And like this is like very small scale as to like what could happen. This is very small scale in terms of like what needs to change or what needs to have a effect on the community. But like, you know, people just need to not be afraid of stepping outside of their comfort zone in order to grow in whatever way, shape, or form, right? And that's why I did anthology, right? I spent 6 hours writing out this entire storyline of multiple different paths, how they can cross in and out to see how people make decisions. That's literally it. It's how people make decisions. I'm not going to spoil my predictions, but there are people that are going a completely different path based on how I saw them as an individual, and there's people that are going the exact path that I wanted them to go, and it's hilarious. Like,
yeah, the same thing has kind of happened in Agni Kai, like that we just gave them prompts and we're like, what's your choice? Like the comedy round was like the smartest thing that we did for all of that. You know, we have Christian Lim with his dripping light nipples, like just giving him stuff like that, like that. The prompt was make us laugh. That was the prompt of just make us laugh. And if you make us laugh, you get a 5 out of 5 in theme. Make us laugh.
The nipple slideshow, top 5 on my list. No, like
never let it die. Never let it die.
The FBI knows your location at the end, and he just runs off. Inspirational.
Guys, yeah, this has been super informative. I kind of have to bounce.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
I was just gonna say, is there anything else anyone
great
wants
show,
to
guys.
say before we wrap up? Because I figure we're at that point now.
I think it's been good, honestly.
All right.
Yeah, I would say everybody get to the drawing board. You know, you don't have to listen to our suggestions. You don't have to think that this is the end all be all, but we need everybody to kind of restructure a little bit, get a bit more of a plan and an idea, and just trust that the more of us that take the reins with this, the faster we're going to get back to where we need to be.
Exactly. It is not a call to arms. It is a call to action. You know, and it's one of my mom's favorite expressions. It is one of her best quotes from one of her favorite movies. Are we going to do it, or are we going to talk about it? And that's where I'm going to leave it. But other than that, I hope everybody enjoyed what we said in this episode. I had a huge blast. Everybody else had a huge blast. I would love to hear any suggestions from the community, what you guys have thoughts on. We definitely want to hear back from you guys. It is extremely important now to hear back from you. But of course, down in the description below, you'll find everybody's socials. I'll even have Starlight's, all of her stuff, you know, her Instagram. I'll get her TikTok in there. All the other platforms will be on there. Do not hesitate to do so. It's absolutely free for you to do it, and it helps out everybody. So,
I have a final thing. If you're posting live shows on Glover's Lounge, because I know that if you're seeing this, 9 out of 10 times you're from Glover's Lounge. If you post a light show on GL, just post it on YouTube. It's free. Just do it. Make it public. Just do it.
Click the extra buttons. Just do it.
It does absolutely nothing wrong for you. Just do it.
I'm literally going to pull the Peter Griffin when he goes to Hollywood and he has his business cards and he's just, call me. That's what you need to do with your videos.
Oh,
on
he's
platforms.
going to do that right
Call me. Ah, show business.
here, right? Like,
But,
yeah, that's all I've got.
right. But other than that, I certainly hope you guys enjoyed what we had to say. We definitely want to hear back from you guys. And please do not hesitate to come back next month because we already have our topic discussion in mind. And sorry, I certainly hope we get you for this next one because I definitely want to get your input on coaching.
Yes. And quick note, it's pronounced Sari. Everybody
Sari,
gets it wrong. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's a thing. But yes.
Sorry?
Sorry.
A-Rye?
Sorry. Yes.
A-Rye?
My name is Apology. How can I help you?
Hello, I'm already apologizing. Now how can I help you?
Dude, holy shit. It's like, yeah, my name's Sorry. It's short for apology.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I can't read either. It's
I'm
okay.
sorry I exist.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but until next time, my audience, we will see you